Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Unit. Stick with us a couple of seconds and I will tell you how to be wise and find the blaze.
How to be wise and find the blaze. Well, you're going to tell us two really important things to help us, aren't you?
Well, I think we have to. I think they're closely tied together. I mean, not only are they in the same sentence, the first sentence of the fourth stanza, but they are intimately tied with one another because they're also the eighth clue, which precedes this ninth clue, look quickly down your quest to cease. And I believe those kind of four sets, if you've been wise, found the blaze, look quickly down, quest to cease, are all intimately tied together in kind of one mythological theory.
Okay.
For lack of a better way to describe it.
All right.
But, so we're going to focus on this. If you've been wise and found the blaze, and looking down your quest to cease. I'm not going to deal with tarry scanting and marvel gazing for this particular episode, okay?
All right.
So let's go to, first of all, discuss what a blaze isn't. Because there's a lot, you know, as usual, there's a lot of ideas on the blaze. We don't think, how about if I preface it that way, in our humble opinion, the blaze isn't a mark on a tree, any mark on any tree.
I agree.
And that's because it has no longevity.
Right.
Right? Tree's not going to be there for 1,000 years. Probably not there for 100 years.
Especially if it's already broken or dead.
Right, exactly.
Which a lot of people have claimed is a blaze.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're doing regular trail blazing, yes, a mark in a tree is definitely a blaze.
Well,
but you're leaving that for people who are a day or two behind you, not 100 to 1,000 years away.
Right. Exactly. The definition, one of the definitions of a blaze, is a mark on a tree that's used by people who are interested in forestry for whatever reason. Yeah, that's referred to as a blaze, but there's millions of them then. It's not the mark on a forehead of an animal, any mark, any animal, which is another definition of a blaze. A little white streak on a little dish-faced Arabian horse is always referred to as a blaze. And that's because A, they don't have longevity, and B, they're always moving anyway, right? It's not a cairn. It's not a rock cairn.
Right.
And the reason is, although we've found those, we've actually found some of those.
I could have easily kicked it over.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't, but I could have.
In Lander. We found in our recon in Lander. We found one in our recon at Pilar. So they're pretty common. People just seem to, like, it's a thing, apparently.
It is.
And they can go up in a moment and come down just as quickly. It's not a stand of aspens or a field of flowers, although there is a lot of color and it is a blaze of color. Again, there's no permanency there.
Right. Plus, you'd have to be there that certain time of year that it's blooming or it's blazing.
That's right.
As they call it.
Yeah, and that puts a special limitation on it anyway. It's not a fire, again, temporary, or the remains of a fire, because it's simply not compact enough. It has to be tied into the context of the poem, and we're at the point at that stage in the poem where we're talking about the environment. You know, I don't mean the environment in a environmental activist kind of way. I'm talking about the environment in terms of where you are right then and there. Well, most fires, forest fires, leave large stretches of what was, you know, what remains of the forest. It's going to be hard to identify a single tree, you know, that says this points to the treasure.
And a campfire would just be
no permanence.
No permanence.
And you know, the likelihood of somebody using it or not using it again is slim to none. I mean, or no, just the opposite, using it or not using it. So I also believe that it's some unique combination of astronomy, geology, and Fenn's special place. And what I mean by that is that there's places and I suppose the most obvious one is Stonehenge. But there's also one, if I remember correctly, in Chaco Canyon, where at certain times of the year, and I think it's the summer solstice and the winter solstice, the sun passes through the light of the sun passes through a small crack, and it marks a certain place on the face of a cliff. And they use that to measure time, to measure the seasons. The problem I have with that is that it only happens twice a year in that case. And it would mean that Fenn would have had to envision the potential for the sun being at a certain place in the sky in combination with that certain geologic configuration, a hole in the rock or something, in combination with what his special place was. And the likelihood of that happening really is slim to none. I'm sure that everybody would like it that way, but those kinds of events only happen in movies like Treasure of the Lost Ark, So I don't think it's any of that. I don't think the blaze is any of those. So the question is, what is the blaze? And I think it goes back to a story that we all know. Or most of us know, I suppose. You can't say that everybody knows it, although it's in the New Testament. So the big question you have to ask is, who are the most famous wise men in all of written history?
The three wise men.
Yeah, the three wise men.
Songs written about them, and
exactly,
and holidays for them, and everything. Yeah.
So they were wise. At least they were perceived to be wise by the writers of the Bible and by the interpreters of the Bible. In the Bible, you hear the story of the Magi and the Christmas story. In the New Testament, it was Matthew and that wrote it, and the story is that they followed a star. Well, in reality, in astronomical history, A, they were likely Babylonian. B, they traveled east from Mesopotamia towards the Mediterranean, first to Jerusalem, and then south to Bethlehem. They were likely Zoroastrian priests who were familiar, they had knowledge of mathematics and astronomy, but they practiced astrology. And in that period, in this case it was 6 BC, those astrologers were very aware of a unique portent, something predicting something in the sky. And it was actually a conjunction between the sun, Jupiter, which was the morning star at that time, and in the east from where they were, the moon, and they were all in the constellation of Aries. Well, their interpretation of that then, and if you were an astrologer today, you might interpret it the same way, was that all of that foretold the birth of a future king in the house of David. And that was what they were following, that concept. Now, that event, that portent, occurred between April and December of 6 BC, which is when the child was likely born. And based on their travels, they would have arrived at a time when the child was about the age of a toddler. But there is scientific credibility behind the story. What was interesting to me was this concept of science looking up and looking down, because when you think about it, if you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down your quest to cease. There's this kind of touch of mystery in all of that. Forrest has said more than once he's not a he's not a religious man, but he is spiritual. He has to be aware of the writings in the Bible, and he has to be aware of not only the mythological component, but the scientific and historically or scientifically accurate component that this event occurred in this way.
And you can't be in the art world and not know these types of paintings.
Exactly, because that's what those paintings are all about.
And Santa Fe, of course,
right.
The cathedral, and Loretto, the chapel at Loretto. I mean, it's got a lot of famous religious icons in Santa Fe.
Santa Fe, the original name for Santa Fe was Via Real de San Francisco de Assisi del Santa Fe.
I'm glad they changed it to Santa Fe.
The royal city of St. Francis of Assisi, which is the Basilica of the Holy Faith. So it was a city born not only born in a religious basis, but if you're wise and you look up, you will look down to find a treasure. Mm-hmm. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down, your quest to cease. So if I was looking for a blaze, I suppose the obvious thing would be to look for a star.
Mm-hmm.
And that star would likely be on the face of a cliff.
Sure. That also kind of looks like is a Zia.
Which is where the Zia comes from, okay. Because this is a Native American petroglyph and their interpretation of a star, although they did have petroglyphs and pictographs of 4-pointed, 5-pointed, and 6-pointed stars.
And in case you don't know what a Zia is, it's the symbol on the New Mexico flag.
Right, the Zia symbol, mm-hmm. Which is four-pointed, effectively. Now, the problem with that is that the likelihood of finding those in a lot of the areas of the Rocky Mountains are, I would say, a probability of 10%. Right, they would have to be in the exact location of the special place. So I've reduced it to something else, and that is I would still be looking for something on the face of a cliff, but and my first choice would be a star. As a matter of fact, if it was a star, I would absolutely be convinced I was in the right location. But the likelihood of me finding a star, just the probability of it, is significantly reduced. What I would be looking for instead would be a white granite deposit, a blaze of white. And it could be a big deposit like this one, or it could be a small deposit in a larger geologic deposit. The reason I like it is because it has permanence. Mm-hmm. It's going to be there for a long time. It will likely be visible on the face of a cliff, and it will likely be up someplace in the cliff where you can see it from wherever you're walking. And I think what's interesting is that we, and I'm sure a lot of other searchers, when they're out boots on the ground, spend a lot of time looking down. And what the wise men have told us is that you should be looking up. Mm-hmm. Because several recons ago, you and I both decided that what? Do you remember?
I don't know what you're referring to, so I don't know.
You said it. We're not looking for a treasure.
Oh. Mm. We're looking for the blaze.
Right, we're looking for the blaze. Mm-hmm. The blaze is not going to be on the ground. The treasure may be, but the blaze is going to be up. And it's going to be visible when you're, I don't want to say when you're within 200 feet, but when you're within a reasonable distance of the treasure, the blaze is going to be visible, but if you're looking down, you're going to miss the blaze. And if you miss the blaze, you're going to miss the treasure.
The blaze points the way to the treasure.
Right.
And it could be...
like a star in the sky, like the North Star points us in a direction. I mean, there's a lot of, commonality with that whole concept of following a star.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, it could be a deposit of quartz, which points to gold.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, too. As you're aware, a quartz deposit is always an indication of a gold deposit as well. I mean, it's usually, generally speaking, if you find quartz, you're going to find pyrite. And if you find pyrite, there is very likely that if you dig a little bit further into that quartz deposit, you're going to find some gold. Mm-hmm. So, which is a treasure in and of itself. So, recommendations.
Yes.
So, I suppose the first recommendation is stop looking down, mm-hmm. because you're not going to find the blaze. And if you don't find the blaze, you're not going to find the treasure. So you should look up for the blaze. And look for a vertical rock surface in your search area. So if you've reduced your search area to, you've got your warm waters halt and your canyon down, You've got to go through the other clues as well, but one of the things that you should be looking for in your search area is some sort of vertical surface. When you get there, then look for a deposit of something different or something different on the face of that surface. And like I said, could be a pictograph, 10% probability, but it could be an unusual deposit, a white blaze of something on that surface, and it is very likely above your head. You're looking up, not down. And then from there, you're looking, as you look down from that, you're looking for a crevice or a niche at the bottom of that same vertical surface in which a treasure could be hidden.
All right. And that is the blaze. So if you're wise and you watched the whole show today, you'll know where to find the blaze in Fenn's poem. There you go.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next week. Special
surprise.
Yeah.
Woo.
So we've got a different show planned for next week. It's a little bit different. It depends on some technological underpinnings falling together. We have a good sense of what we want to do, and we think it's going to be interesting in terms of helping searchers with additional information that may not come from us. So we're looking forward to the show, and I'm just not going to give you any more information because I don't want to give it away. You're going to have to watch the show and enjoy watching it as much as I think we'll enjoy shooting it.
In the meantime, if you have an idea of where we can find this blaze, or you've seen something similar to what we've talked about today, let us know in the comments below, and we'd love to talk about that with you. So thanks for watching. I'm Shelley Carney with A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for watching this week. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.